Okay,
Thanks,
thank
Ellen.
you, Ellen, and congratulations to you for pulling this all off. This is amazing. And if we're talking about PD, I honestly love the VTI because it's practitioner to practitioner and it's just such a great event. So thanks for
Right.
it.
Well, welcome, everyone.
Yes, welcome. I'm Rachel Riggs, and this is my colleague Denise. Oh, Denise, we put our introductions after our objectives. That's okay. Let's introduce ourselves first. Go ahead, Denise.
No, go ahead. So hi, I'm Denise Kline, and I am the ESL instructional specialist at Chesapeake College's adult education program on the Eastern Shore of Maryland.
And hello, my name is Rachel Riggs. I have gone through a lot of job changes recently. So I am the former Frederick Community College ESL-IS. I had a short stint with South Carolina Office of Adult Education as their ESL curriculum specialist. And I recently just this week started a job as a digital learning specialist for World Education. So I've been on a bit of a roller coaster ride, but I'm so thrilled to be here with you guys. Like I said, I love the VTI and love all my Marylanders. So for today, let me get back to our objectives. A little background on the presentation itself, and then I'll let Denise talk about the objectives. This was a request from Gina Davis, who's on maternity leave, but normally runs the VTI. And she reached out to Denise and I because Denise is a genius who developed the personalized professional development plan model that I adopted last year when I became IS at Frederick. So we're going to talk a little bit about the personalized professional development plan, but we also just want to have a very interactive session. And we've built that into every section because we want everybody who's here to be able to share their ideas and resources for PD. Okay, go ahead, Denise.
So please use the chat box and ask questions away throughout the session. We'll be monitoring that as we go through today. Also, again, we're going to be using Jamboard and different ways for you to interact. So I know you can see us, but sadly we can't see you. So please use the chat box and use the Jamboard as we move through. What we're going to do today is the first thing we're going to do is we're going to help you identify those 7 elements of effective professional development. And we're going to talk to you about the PD cycle. Sometimes we think of professional development as being linear in nature, but really it's cyclic in nature. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to share ideas and talk about ways to help plan those content-focused and collaborative PD experiences for our instructors, and also different strategies to help deliver that effective professional development within your programs. And lastly, we are going to talk about how instructors and how ISs can, how do we know that PD is having an impact on instruction? How do we figure that out? Especially now that a lot of us are, still in virtual world, right? So that's what we have today, an ambitious agenda, but I think we can get it done in an hour. So,
right, for sure. Okay, so first I'm going to present these. I love the report that was put out by Darling Hammond on effective teacher professional development. It has a lot of great concrete principles and suggestions for professional development for teachers specifically. But the 7 elements from that literature say that effective professional development is content focused, incorporates active learning, supports collaboration, uses models and modeling of effective practice, provides coaching and expert support, offers opportunities for feedback and reflection, and is of sustained duration. So we are going to use those 7 elements to kind of frame our discussion today.
Right. So we're talking about, again, the PD cycle. So when we're talking about professional development, it really is, it's a circle, right? So the first thing we're going to talk to you about is planning. And planning is really important. Just like we tell our instructors, we don't want you going into a class and winging instruction, right? Planning needs to happen, and we're going to talk about that. The next part of the cycle is delivery. How is that professional development delivered? There have been a lot of great sessions this week on ways of delivering professional development and a lot of thinking outside the box. So hopefully we can share some of those ideas when we get to the section on delivery. And then the last part of it is follow-up. How are we following up with training? And of course, then that leads back into, from the follow-up, then it helps us plan or replan professional development. So think about PD as a cycle.
And before we go to the next slide, I would love if you guys could put in the chat, what is your strength when it comes to the PD cycle? So of these 3 phases, what do you feel like your program really does well? If you can put that in the chat between planning, delivery, and follow-up, we'd love to hear from you. Okay.
Delivery. Thanks, Peg.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so as far as planning PD, like I said, we're going to talk about it in the context of the elements of effective PD. So the question is, we all know we have to plan PD at some point. Now, Denise and I think, agree on the fact that you should plan it as early as possible. But you should also plan for it to be content focused and collaborative. And the more planning that you put into it, the easier it is to incorporate those 2 elements. So Denise and I kind of thought about, okay, how do we make it content focused and collaborative? How do we plan that ahead of time? And we came up with some of these suggestions. First of all, start with the data. That's going to help you really nail down that content and know exactly what you want to Doug's
like data. Hi, Doug.
And there's so many ways to collect that data. Surveys from the teachers, what do they feel like they need? Observations of the teachers in the classroom, student evaluations. What are the students loving about their classes and what are they feeling could use improvement in their classes? So always start with the data when you're planning your PD and be strategic about collecting and analyzing that. And then, like I said, schedule ahead of time, schedule far enough ahead of time so that you can find expertise in the content area and so that you can incorporate the collaborative elements of the PD.
Right. And no, go ahead, Rachel.
Yeah. And then I was just going to say, incorporating external resources also requires that planning way ahead of time and the finding the expertise. And also you just tend to have a little bit more variety when you are taking things from other places, a little more creativity.
And one thing's interesting, I'm noticing in the chat box, I see a lot of planning and delivery that people think they're good at, and not a whole lot with follow-up. And I agree, that's the hardest part of PD is the follow-up piece, right? So hopefully we'll come away today with some good ideas with that. And one thing about scheduling ahead of time, I know at Chesapeake, we do our professional development schedule. We give our instructors for the entire fiscal year. So we set up our professional development schedule for the year, and teachers get that right away, which allows them to plan ahead of time because they're busy. Instructors are busy with, classes and other, jobs outside of the program. So making sure they have that schedule ahead of time so that they can make sure that gets on their calendar so that they don't miss anything. So.
Yes, and we do the same thing. We put out a schedule ahead of time. It doesn't mean you have to know every date of everything, but knowing at least the quarters or and definitely knowing the topics and the formats can really help teachers choose ahead of time and make choices that are strategic to fill their needs and gaps. So I want to jump over to our Jamboard now, you guys, and hear from you guys. What data do you collect to make PD decisions? So this is a Jamboard. Over on the left of the Jamboard, if you're not familiar, there is a toolbox. I would love if you could click on the sticky note button, add your comment. So maybe you're going to say surveys and then click save. And that's going to put it on our Jamboard. And then you can move it around if you so desire. So
they need the link
in the chat.
Got it.
Sorry, the link is in the chat box. And you guys go ahead and open that up and let us know what data do you collect to make PD decisions.
Is everyone able to click on it?
Can you edit it? Did I mess something up? Okay, good. They can.
Okay, good. And if you're having a hard time with the Jamboard, you can go ahead and type in the chat
Yeah,
box. If you're more
absolutely.
comfortable with the chat box, please go ahead and do that.
Mhm.
NRS tables.
Okay, NRS levels, NRS tables. Yes, good.
Surveys, student evaluations. Evaluations from previous PDs. Teacher input. Observations. Test scores.
And I want to take this a step further. These are all great. If anybody wants to put up also, how do they analyze the data? What do you do to analyze the data? Is that something that, do you do it in a spreadsheet? Are you getting a team together? How do you analyze the data to then turn it into PD decisions? Teacher input surveys, test score information, Google form surveys, teacher input, attendance patterns.
Oh, that's interesting. Teacher suggestions, observations.
Attendance data. Okay, wow. Attendance data is new for me. I don't think we ever took that into our PD. That's great. Spreadsheet or old fashioned tallies.
Attendance data.
Okay, we have student performance. Some of these are getting stacked, so I'm just moving them to
yeah.
Okay, awesome. Assessment item analysis. You're actually analyzing specific items on an assessment. Very interesting.
Okay, this is great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks for sharing.
Perfect, wonderful.
Okay, so then our next question for you is, how do you schedule PD and share with instructors? What does that look like in your program? And I'm sorry, to get to the next frame, I should have explained this. When I'm looking at my phone here, because I'm looking at the Jamboard on my phone, just so you guys know, I'm not like texting. I'm not texting during class, teacher. Up in the center of the screen in your browser, you're going to see a 1 out of 5. Those are the frames we have in the Jamboard. So if you click the arrow to the right, you'll be able to get to the next frame. So go to the top middle of your screen and click the arrow to the right to go to the next frame. And that's where we're asking, how do you schedule PD and how do you share those choices with your instructors?
Right.
On frame 2.
Right. So for example, like with our program, let's say we create a calendar for the year of professional development. And then we distribute that usually through email. It's also at every, PD, we talk about that. It's in a their new hire packet when a new hire is brought onto the program. So that's kind of how we share that information.
Mm-hmm. And in our program, we share it at the start of the year during a like startup meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And then we post it on our Blackboard page, include in weekly emails and anything else. And then just, as needed, of course, if there's something that pops up that's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, then we'll just send out an email.
Right. And also, we'll talk about this, any outside things, like if you're going to something through links or something through COABE or, those information, I usually, I try and create, and again, this is hit or miss sometimes with me because I have to admit things get a little crazy, but I try really hard, like once a month to set out some type of staff newsletter, and it'll have professional development information within that newsletter to staff.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Okay, someone uses Remind to send out notices. That's great.
Oh, okay. That's a great idea.
As we're sharing ideas to you guys, if you see a sticky note that you kind of have a question about, feel free to add another sticky note with your question or put your question in the chat box. If you see something here that piques your interest and you want to know more detail. Right. Okay, so send out Remind annually, quarterly, schedule yearly, and shared via Blackboard. PD is shared via email. In-house PD meetings are scheduled. Oh, they have a weekly technology Thursdays that includes updates and resources.
Oh, I like that. That's a great idea.
That is fun.
So whoever asked that, how is that done? Is it sent out? How is that sent out to instructors? If the person who did that sticky, if they could put in the chat box, how is that done? Is it sent out through email? Is it sent out through a another type of text service? How's that done?
I know with South Carolina, we had set up a MailChimp newsletter to share not only resources and curriculum, but also a little section on the PD that was available that month. Okay, we have TT is developed by the IS and sent out via email.
Email, okay.
Now, is the Technology Thursdays, that's an email or that's a meeting you guys have?
Instructors needing digital literacy. Okay.
Okay, that's a question. Is the Technology Thursdays in response to digital literacy?
Right.
Let us know. Okay, then I'm seeing.
Oh, I think I remember hearing about this in another the technology. Was this in response to the digital literacy framework? I think I remember hearing about.
I remember
this
hearing
idea.
about this in a community of practice one time too.
Yes, which is a great idea through email. Yeah. Okay, perfect.
Okay, great. Okay, so we're going to move to one more, which was our last little tip or strategy that we use, which is to bring in external resources. So on frame 3, again, you're going to the top middle of your screen, click the right arrow to get to the next frame. What, if any, external sources do you use for PD? So that's outside of your program, something that you're not hosting in-house, but COAB is a good one, sending instructors to a conference or an event. I even know there are so many great literacy centers that do PD. They'll do PD periodically. Okay, so we've got links. What is IP Day? I don't know what that is. If you want to spell that out, that'd be great.
Oh, good. I was going to ask the same question. I was like, what is that? Pre-ACO conferences.
Okay, professors from Salisbury.
Old VTI sessions. Yes, those are great. And they're all archived. I'll give a shout out to Doug. We've been using the one on adult educators as data miners. So thanks, Doug, for that one. That was a great one.
Yeah, someone tell me what IP Day is, please. I'm dying to know because I see here too, Florida IP Day webinars. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right, yes. But GED.com, YouTube videos. Nice. Yes.
Aztec. Aztec. Yeah, that's a great, and thank you for mentioning that. Our vendors like Aztec, Burlington English, ESL Library, not only do they do presentations based upon their product, but a lot of them do free professional development for other topics. So yeah, Burlington's a great resource.
Yeah, Burlington is great, and they will pretty much just do a PD whenever at no extra cost to the program, and they're also very receptive. I know with the leaders or the program really guiding the agenda, I really need the instructors to focus on that. So that's been great too, working with Burlington.
Yes. Actually, they're coming out for us at the end of January to do training on CASAS, on their CASAS prep.
The prep for CASAS. Yeah. Great. Okay, great. Thank you guys for sharing. I have never heard of IP Day, Florida IP Day. I'm going to be heading there after this and see what that's all about. So I hope you guys got some other great ideas from this. I have to add a little plug myself, the Ed Tech Center at World Education, you guys. I'm there now, so. And they do provide lots of great PD, specifically the distance education strategy sessions are always very interesting. Marilyn Teasall, hello. Yes. We put that. I forgot about Marilyn Teasall, another great PD place. What else? Literacy Minnesota is great. They put out some PD stuff too.
Right.
Any other ones, Denise, you can think of?
Off the top of my head, these are some great ideas. Thank you. Thank you guys for sharing. This is a great, and what we can do is we can share our Jamboard when we share our information. When it comes to, we can also share our Jamboard with everyone so they can keep this.
Absolutely. Right. Yes. Okay. Let's jump back over to our slides. That's planning. So now we're going to move into delivery.
So quick question in the chat box, since we're talking about delivery. Are you all, can you put in the chat box, are you all delivering professional development virtually, face-to-face, or a combination of both? So if you could take a minute and pop that into the chat box. Virtually. Combination, but mostly virtual. Okay. Yes. Very good.
Isn't that interesting? You know, I'm also interested to know prior to the pandemic, like what the change was, because I know for us, it was prior to the pandemic, all in-house. And then during pandemic, obviously virtual, and even now post-pandemic, we've just found that it's a lot more convenient.
Yes, for a combination.
Yeah.
Yeah, seeing that too. For us, we're still virtual. We still providing professional development virtually. So, all right. So how do we, another virtual, better attendance. Yes, you know, people, I know for our program, you know, we're spread out over 5 counties. So on the Eastern Shore, so virtual, yes, is easier for us. And we get a lot of more attendance that way. All right. So how do we deliver professional development that's effective? And so we look at 2 areas. We're looking at active learning and we're looking at modeling and the different things, and how do we use technology. And so one of the things that Rachel and I talked about is when we deliver professional development to, in our programs, it was really important that we model that professional development the way we want instructors to deliver instruction in their classroom. So that was really important. And we looked at different active learning strategies and making sure that we're applying active learning strategies in our classes, and also looking at how do we use technology. And with virtual world, right, it's easier because we have no choice. How do we engage our instructors? How do we plan the lesson? Like if there's some of my instructors today, they'll know this is a secret. I actually write a lesson plan for the professional development. So I look at it like, where's the warm up, and looking at what am I presenting, and how am I going to incorporate practice with the instructors, and how am I going to assess and evaluate that they got it. So that's when I plan my lesson for PD. How do I check for understanding? How do we as ISs or people who are going to be doing the professional development, how are you checking that your instructors know it? And do we provide opportunity for feedback? And it sounds like that's an area where we kind of all struggle a little bit, is how do we provide that opportunity for feedback as we deliver?
Yeah. And we also added, as a reminder, this active learning modeling, these are 2 of those elements that we presented at the beginning of effective PD. And modeling, I do think is so important. We're going to ask you guys in a minute how you model. But active learning is also very important. And I always like to think about blooms, right? Which I think as teachers, we're always thinking about this, right? Taking it kind of to that next cognitive level. But as PD providers, we also need to think more about this. Of course, it's a little different, right? When we're in PD, we can present a concept, and then ideally the practice is going to be happening in the classroom. But it does always help if there is some way during the PD, in a supported environment, people can practice what they're learning and can apply it to some extent. And it's also helpful, I think, for setting up that feedback if they have an opportunity in a protected environment to mess up a little bit or to experiment a little bit more, and then they can get feedback and grow from that. So thinking also about how do we incorporate blooms, how do we incorporate active learning in the PD setting, just like we would in the classroom setting.
Right.
Okay, guys, we're going to jump to our Jamboard now. So if you're looking at my Zoom screen, you can just go back to your Jamboard tab, and I will share it in the chat again, just in case you lost that. Oh goodness, well, I seem to have lost it. I'm going to put the link in the chat again, but now we are on frame 4. And on frame 4, it asks, what active learning strategies do you employ in PD? And so maybe let's get away from strategies. I mean, you can certainly answer with strategies, but maybe let's even just hear about activities you do to incorporate active learning. I think that would be interesting.
Do you have this screen share again?
Yes, I will put it up just a second. Okay, there is the Jamboard is in the chat. I will share my screen again, or you guys can click on the link in the chat to get over to the Jamboard and go to frame 4. Okay, great. Yeah, we have one already. Think, pair, share. Yes. I mean, anything that really we're using in the class, almost anything would transfer well. And think, pair, share is a great example. So we're on frame 4. Anyone else? What active learning, what kinds of activities do you do in PD?
Great. While you're typing, while we're waiting for things to come in, I mean, one of the things I think is really important for us is a couple of things. Not to overload your professional development with a lot of objectives. And you really want time to be able to focus on specific objectives, because you really want to give teachers time to reflect within during the time, and also making sure that you leave time for them to be able to share with other instructors. I don't know, especially if we're in we're doing the type of PD where we're together in a workshop setting. Okay. And we're going to talk a little bit more about, personalized PD, but when you're together, giving those teachers time to share out so that I made a rookie mistake at the Welcome Back PD. I wanted to talk about measurable skill gain, and I had this great activity, and I started with talking about program updates, and we got really bogged down and mired. And when I looked back at my lesson plan, I had put too much information. And I really should have done the activity first, because that was the most important, right? So think about that, like that. What is most important that you want instructors to know? So
got some great ideas up here. Discussion, Q&A. Implement. I like that the implementation plan is great. How are you actually going to apply this in the classroom, and coming up with a plan for that?
Open-ended questions. Yeah, focused objectives are really important, right? You don't want anything vague. You want to make sure things are focused.
Yeah, jigsaw learning. Great. Jigsaw learning that's a really fun one. What was I going to say? Somebody said, with the implementation plan, I think too, it helps if built into that PD structure, maybe we say, okay, how are you going to implement this? Make a plan. And here, identify a check-in buddy that you're going to check in with and say, I tried this in the classroom, what we learned about in PD, and this worked well, this didn't work out so well. But I think that really would help with the growth if you have a peer to kind of check in with and track your own progress with. I'll add to that, we did for Maryland TESOL, and with World Ed, we're doing these EdTech Makerspace events, and it's like a service learning PD. Within this, teachers learn about technology, an EdTech tool or something, and they actually create teaching resources within the PD using that technology. So you learn the technology and create a resource with it. And that really enabled us to give them feedback. So for example, if I'm teaching Quizlet and teachers are making their own Quizlet sets, I can say, hey, maybe you added too many pictures to this set or something like that to give that feedback. And it's, again, a protected environment where they're not with students and kind of feeling nervous about using a new tool. Instructors have so much to share. Yes, allow for open sharing.
Yes.
Keep it open-ended. And really tap into their expertise and their excellent ideas. That's good too.
Right. Because I think that's the favorite part when we're all together as a group. That's instructors' favorite part of professional development is being able to get together and share their ideas and what's working and what's not working, what challenges they have in the classroom. That it's very important that happens, within every PD.
Okay,
So-
Erin says check-in buddies, good idea. I just had that one. I've never done that before, but I was just thinking that might be helpful.
Right.
I'm glad you like it. We should all try it.
Yes.
We could all be each other's check-in buddy for the check-in buddies. Shri, I'm sorry that you had to request access. I'm not sure why I opened it up. So I apologize for that. And then let's see. I've been trying to squeeze in too much with our precious PD time. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so we're gonna go over to the last frame now in our Jamboard, and the last frame is what other ways do you model best practices? So how else do you incorporate modeling in your PD?
So like I said, we try and model when I'm doing professional development. Again, I tried to model by actually creating a lesson plan for my professional development when I'm creating PD for our program. Create a lesson plan. Yep. Yes.
I think also just demoing, like teaching, right?
Mhm.
So if you're showing a strategy for teaching vocabulary or something, actually acting like you're a teacher in the classroom and kind of giving a demo just to see that modeled without a full classroom
Correct.
visit. Although I think that's another great way to model too, right? Is peer observation.
Right.
Okay, here we go. Purposefully including I do, we do, you do components in the
Right.
PD. Great. Any other ways on frame 5 that you model?
Sheree, if you want to, you can type your answers in the chat box and we can make sure it gets onto the Jamboard because we want to make sure you can participate. Okay. Which brings us to another thing when you're modeling. When technical glitches happen, and technical glitches will happen, just make sure, again, you can come up with plan B, because I find sometimes that we can get flustered when this happens. And as long as we stay calm as professional development people, they'll model that to our instructors as well.
That's good. Yeah, calm response.
Responses to things. Exactly. Like Ellen said, like AKA polls in Zoom. Yes, that will happen.
Yes, Ellen modeled that for us this morning.
Yes.
Not this afternoon. Okay. Okay, let's see. I also wanted to add, just I think right now technology.
Yes.
I think it's really helpful if you can model the use of technology in ways that are conducive to learning and actually are supporting the learning and not taking away from it. I think that's really important.
Right. Yeah, like one thing also we do too is like I'll open up the Zoom room, say 15 minutes prior to professional development, because lots of times, I don't know about you all, but we get together in the Zoom room and everybody's like, how's your vacation and how are things going? And so if we open it up, say 10 minutes early or 15 minutes early, people hop into the Zoom room and all that conversation happens. And then you can go ahead and start PD. And then, everyone's kind of ready to begin what, the events for the night, the objectives for the evening.
I like that. And it also kind of goes to this model interactive teaching ideas in a virtual environment, stress importance of relationships in teaching by having a way for staff to build rapport each session. So just leaving that time for teachers to connect with each other and kind of build a team there.
You're coming up with some great ideas. Thank you for sharing. This is really wonderful.
Yes.
So
very interesting. Okay, so we're going to move over to follow-up, everybody's favorite.
So go ahead. So how do we know? So here's the fun part. So how do we know if professional development is having an impact on instruction, right? So this is kind of where, where we say where the rubber meets the road, right? We've done all this. We've planned for professional development. We've done for the entire year, we've decided what we're going to teach. We've delivered it. So now how do we know that this is happening? And how do we know that what we're teaching and what we're presenting to the instructors is having an impact on instruction? It is making sense. So we talked about it through these 3 ways. So coaching with our instructors and how we provide feedback, and then looking at having our teachers reflect. and doing things. So we're going to touch on those three things. This section. All right.
Well, I don't want to move forward too quickly. So
Okay.
with coaching, we're talking about really that one-on-one, the opportunities that you give instructors to have someone to connect with one-on-one or in a smaller group to get feedback or get advice. And so how do you set that up? And actually, we didn't have a Jamboard for this section, but I would love to hear what opportunities do you guys have set up in your programs for instructors to connect with each other or to connect with an instructional specialist? How is that set up in your programs? If you want to put it in the chat. What about you, Denise? How do you guys incorporate coaching?
We have, well, I talk with teachers quite often. So teachers know that they can always contact me by phone, by text, through email if they have a question. I also, when teachers come in, I kind of hook them up with another instructor, right? So they can be working with another instructor. So kind of a mentor mentee type situation. We do that. I actually have small work groups that we work together with other teachers, and then they kind of then act as mentors with other small groups of teachers. So that's different ways that coaching happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see Lama putting in the chat. At FCC, we do a coffee hour. We have office hours, but I like what you said. I mean, it does not have to be something formal, right? It can be just letting your instructors know that you are available. I hope we have some of our FCC instructors here. I hope everybody has felt that I have been available, right? And that they could reach out to me anytime to get support or advice. So I think that's really important. Yes. And then feedback is the next one. So how do we incorporate feedback when it comes to PD? We have one more: text and emails to check in on them, offer model lessons or classroom visits for feedback, be available to them, and respond within 24 hours. I totally agree. I think, it's really important to be very responsive when you're supporting hardworking, dedicated teachers. RS is an open door offer. That's great.
Yeah, another thing we have, like from a written perspective, is we have something called an SIR, which is a student interaction report, but it's more than that. So it's a live document where teachers keep attendance, but there's also a section where they keep notes. And so they can note like if a specific, something happened in a specific class, or and I look at that and intake looks at that. And so I can go on there and see like, oh, I need to go check with that teacher, like something, I'm looking at attendance and like maybe attendance was really good and now attendance is starting to fall off. And so let me contact that teacher and see what's going on. So that student interaction report has been really helpful for us too.
That's really interesting. I like that a lot. Okay, Shauna says IS is accessible and they plan collaborative PD so instructors can get ideas and troubleshoot.
Right.
And then feedback. Yeah, thanks. Cherie just transitioned us nicely into feedback.
Right.
This is a challenging one. Depending on how receptive people are. But, I always think if you keep it in your mind to encourage rather than discourage, then feedback can go very well. What do you think, Denise? What are your tips?
I agree. And feedback can be done. I try when I'm meeting with teachers. I know we have our formal observation times that we need to do, or we have to fill out our observation forms and do that. But another thing for feedback is I try really hard. In our program, I'll pop in on classes, just to pop in like 15 minutes before and say, hey, meet with me like 10 minutes before class and let's talk about some things that are going on and how are things going in your class and what do you need from me. So the formal observation is important for us to see like what we need to work on, but those casual conversations with instructors, I find I get the most information from. Yeah. Because that helps me then move into what I can help them. And talking about personalized PD, it's really helpful when I'm trying to guide them towards things that they might need for their own personal professional development.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as much as we can, if we can incorporate something where they are able to apply what they're learning in the PD, and then they have a little bit of an opportunity for feedback at that low stakes point in time. I think that's helpful.
Right.
And then Llama added another great one, which is student course evaluations, right? That's crucial feedback. Feedback doesn't have to come from us, but in the class evaluations, we can make connections to the PD using the feedback that students are giving. And then peer observations and shadowing, which I think is great. And I think it can be very much more intentionally in part of the PD.
Right.
If we kind of track who was in the PD, and maybe like those buddy check-ins that we mentioned earlier, pairing those people who went through the PD together up to then observe each other and bounce ideas off of one another after the fact. And then finally, reflection. How do we incorporate reflection? I know for us, it's we have a survey. Every PD has a survey at the end where instructors not only rate, the PD and what they learned, but talk a little bit about how they're going to implement it in their teaching. What about you, Denise?
Same. We do the same thing.
Yeah.
We do the same thing.
Any other reflection ideas, please put them in the chat. We're going to move forward now to the personalized PD plans and see how they connect the PD cycle and how they incorporate the elements of effective PD. So I'm going to hand it to the genius Denise, who came up with the personalized PD plans.
So how we came about this is, and some of you all can kind of relate to this. We have teachers in our program with varying lengths of experience, right? Some are brand new to adult ed. Some have been teaching in adult ed for a long time. Some come from K-12, but all come with these different realms of knowledge and different levels of expertise within, the teaching world. And so what we decided, Joy and I decided when we started putting this together is we're like, oh my gosh, some of these instructors take the same training over and over and over again. And so how can the way we differentiate instruction with our students, again, how can we model this differentiation of instruction and professional development with teachers? Mm-hmm. So we came up with this tiered system where these are the trainings that every new teacher who comes into our program should have. They need to have X amount of hours with Joy and I. They need to have X amount of hours with a mentor. There were certain programs on links we'd like them to take. So there was this, as a new teacher, what training do we think they need? And then as they, became more experienced in our program, then we have tier 2 and then tier 3. And once they got to tier 3 within our program, that's when we start meeting with them and saying, okay, what are some things that you're looking for to better your career within teaching, and how can we help you? And so that's kind of how this tiered system happened. And it's great because then we can talk with a teacher and say, maybe they move into mentoring other teachers. Maybe they're looking for, we have teachers that work as far as helping in designing and developing curriculum, right? Because now they're at that kind of tier of expertise in the program. So that tier system happened. It updates and changes depending on what PD is available. And again, it kind of just helps that teacher feel like it's that adult learning principle. What I'm doing is relevant to where I am right now. Mm-hmm. That's kind of a very brief way of explaining it. And so each year, a teacher gets their new PD plan, their new personalized PD plan. We talk about what classes they would like to take and what they're looking for. And then we kind of help them meet that objective, that PD objective.
Yeah, that's great. And I love the concept, and we implemented it. So I guess we really could say we piloted it last year at FCC. We did it for the first time. And I will definitely say, and I want some of my instructors who are in here to chime in as well, but overall, we did get good feedback, and we did hear from instructors that it helped them kind of think about, what they personally needed, but it also was helpful to them because the structure of the personalized PD plan requires us to create the PD menu, as we call it, ahead of time. And so rather than them just hearing week by week, month by month about, hey, there's a PD, hey, there's a PD, And they would just kind of go because, they weren't aware of what was coming down the line or anything. This helped them think about, okay, well, these are going to be my options. And so I can kind of strategically pick the ones that I really am interested in.
Yeah. And we created we also did like a course, like a course book, right? So we would have like the title of the PD, that's online PD that's available, a description, how many hours they would be paid to complete it, those type of information. And so if they knew they had, say, 8 hours of online personalized PD time paid, then they could go into that course and kind of look through to see what fits their needs. Right. And then when they were finished, the certificate would come to us, and then it would be added into LACES, into their professional development side of LACES. But again, it allowed them to choose, right? Kind of that learner autonomy, right? It allowed them to choose. It allows them to choose what PD works best for them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Right.
And I'll say just for me, since I was doing it as a new IS, it helped me get to know the instructors a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
Just having that conversation or seeing what they put in their plan just kind of helped me understand what their priorities were and what their interests were. So, it's just, I think on so many levels, it's beneficial to the instructors and to the instructional specialists as well. And so, how does it support the PD cycle? I think we've touched on all of these, but obviously it requires a plan ahead of time. You put out, all of the options ahead of time so they can create their plans. And then the actual content focus is exactly at that instructor's level and aligns with their interests and priorities. And then finally, it gives you that opportunity for follow-up, which, is built in, but also if you have kind of a list to look back, okay, well, these were your plans for the year, that facilitates more of a conversation around what growth took place, if you have that kind of reference material to look at. I don't want to move on too quickly. I want to know, does anybody have any questions about executing? Oh, thank you, Christina. Thank you so much for putting in. Christina is an FCC teacher. So I was hoping to hear from one of you and how you felt last year was the most beneficial for me in terms of PD. Appreciate the opportunity to choose from a diverse palette. Okay, good.
Great.
Good. I'm glad you,
And put a little plug. So Joy and I actually did in VTI, so it's archived. We did a presentation at a past VTI on personalized professional development. So if you want to learn more information about that, you can go back into the VTI archive, and there's a presentation on that as well.
Yes. And that's where we first learned about it. So this is a very full circle moment. We learned about it at the VTI. The following year, we talked about our pilot of it. And then this year, you and I are collaborating and presenting it here. Yeah. So does anyone have questions about the personalized PD plan, or maybe even some of the logistics that would go into that? I know we only have a few minutes here, but I do want, okay, was there flexibility if a need was recognized, or if you found additional PD options that would benefit the instructor? I would say high flexibility. Would you agree, Denise?
Yes, very much. Very much.
Yeah, I mean, we're working with professionals, and so it's never about pigeonholing someone into something. It's more about facilitating the conversation before the opportunity is there, so that everybody has time to kind of think about and strategize what's going to be best.
Right. And also allowed you to, like, if you go in and observe a class and you're seeing certain things, you can talk to that person and say, hey, I noticed, for example, let's look about, active learning strategies. And so here's a great resource for you to look at, some active learning strategies. Let's talk about this, and then we'll follow up again, right? So it allows you really to focus that. But yeah, flexibility is the rule of the day. How large of a program are you talking? Oh, I'm sorry, Rachel.
No, I was going to go to that one. So you go ahead.
Yeah. So for us, I mean, our program has a large geographical area, but but we're considered probably a more medium-sized program. So I have right now, I think at the moment, we have 25 instructors within our program, so relatively small. But again, our instructors are spread out over a 5-county geographic area on the shore. So for us, virtual has been very helpful. in keeping
Yeah.
in contact.
And I think in our pool, we have something like 40, and we have, the 2 ISs were working on the personalized PD plan. So it was a manageable workload, I think.
Okay.
And then we have, how did you organize the options? Was it like a menu of choices? So I hear that Denise did kind of a tier system. At FCC, we did it more topical. So it was like digital literacy, educational technology, workforce development. And then there were leadership opportunities that had some of those like mentoring opportunities. So ours was put out kind of like a menu of choices. And right now it lives in Blackboard as more or less a menu.
Yeah, we have a lot of our information on Google Drive. We have a Google Drive file for instructors, so a lot of information is kept there. Ours was based on the teacher induction model that was found in links. We found that very helpful, and that's what our plan was based upon, was that model. Yeah, so we do it in tiers. So so a teacher, like the first year, 2 years that they're with us, they're tier 1. And then as they move into years 3 and 4, that's usually tier 2. And then once they're past like the 4-year mark, they're up into tier 3. And so that's kind of how we divided the classes.
Great.
So in January, I give my teachers individual PD tasks to complete. I lay them out in a restaurant menu style, and each PD is built on their goals and interests. Oh, that's interesting, Peg.
That sounds kind of like a personalized PD plan.
Yeah, it does. It does. And each PD is built on their goals. That's great, Peg. In January. So Peg, how long do they have? Do they have the a certain amount of time to complete? Is it by the end of the fiscal year?
By June, they have 10 to 12 weeks. So
10 to 12 weeks. Okay.
yeah. Mm-hmm. Very interesting.
Great.
Okay, great. Well, let's go on. I mean, that's everything that we had prepared for today. I know that Denise and I are happy to continue the conversation if anyone wants to stick around and continue asking questions, or you can email us. These are our email addresses. But thank you guys so much. I really enjoyed hearing all of your ideas, and the session was eye-opening as far as getting sorry, I got distracted by the chat for a second.
I know, I was like, I'm looking too. Oh my gosh.
And Christina, I would say, in addition to what you're saying in the chat box, from a teacher's perspective, right? Talk to the administration about PD, about how you want it formatted, about what's useful to you. Like, to me, that was gold. Anytime a teacher said to me, oh my gosh, this PD really helped me, or this PD didn't help me, or I need more PD like this. We're always looking for that kind of feedback.
Right. Well, like, I just know, like, for me, just having taken sessions this week at VTI, there was a lot of great sessions on professional development. And I think that's something too to think about it as a planner of PD. We're learners as well as professional. And I think that's something to think about, that, we are also learning about professional development and how it can constantly be improved, and how we can always do better and think outside the box when it comes to professional development. So that's something to be aware of too. There's always new information out there.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, great. We got some more.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. You got it from the VTI. Great. Okay.
Yeah.
Plan to contact my IS. Good. Contact your IS.
Yes.
I'd love to hear from you. Okay. Thank you guys so much. This was great. You guys were a great interactive group. We'll share out the slides. They'll be in the resources, and the Jamboard will also be in the resources as a follow-up. Don't forget to fill out the feedback survey, which Ellen just put in the chat box. Please make sure to fill that out.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thank you, Denise and Rachel. What a fantastic session to end with. Yeah.